3 tropical weather systems are churning across the Pacific at once, and one is only hours away from a direct hit on a major Japanese island. Here's a region-by-region breakdown of what to expect. Dolphin is the system to watch today. It could strengthen slightly further as it approaches Okinawa before finally starting to lose power. Its wind field is unusually large, strongest at the core, tapering outward, which is normal storm structure. But the sheer size of the overall field sets this one apart. There are even signs it's beginning to take on a hybrid, partly non-tropical structure. As Dolphin closes in on Naha over the next day or two, its core winds should hold steady or even tick up slightly rather than fade. The wider wind field will stay north of Taiwan as the storm tracks west. So northern Taiwan, including Taipei, can expect gusty conditions, though the worst of the storm should pass to the north before Dolphin eventually reaches mainland China. By the time it makes landfall, their winds will have dropped noticeably from peak strength and the system will curve northward as it moves inland. The real danger isn't peak strength, it's speed. Dolphin is stalled, moving forward only sluggishly. It's tracking as a Category 1, briefly touching Category 2, which is serious but not extreme on its own. The storm's eye should pass just north of Okinawa on a nearly due west track. Earlier concern about a northward curve has largely faded. The main story now is a steady westward push toward the Chinese coast. Overnight into today, impacts already arriving in Okinawa-Ryukyu chain. Tonight, back edge of the eye wall moving past, Naha tomorrow. Still affecting Ishigaki tropical storm force winds spreading toward Taipei. Sunday, typhoon force gusts increasing through the day. Sunday evening night landfall in China. Monday storm winds down, bringing heavy flooding rain to eastern China. This track has stayed remarkably consistent with earlier forecasts, which has given affected communities a reliable prep window. Near the core, sustained winds are running at solid, dangerous typhoon strength, with tropical storm force winds extending well beyond the center. The defining trait of this storm is breadth, not tightness. Ishigaki and the Taipei corridor should see tropical storm conditions by tomorrow. Areas nearer the core face full typhoon force winds. Okinawa will still be feeling the back half of tropical storm conditions into tomorrow. Once Dolphin makes landfall in China, land interaction should knock down the wind field quickly, but the circulation will keep pulling in moisture, so heavy rain remains the dominant threat as it moves inland. A second weaker system sitting over Luzon is only loosely tropical, more disorganized than a clean storm. Because its energy is splitting between upper and mid-atmospheric levels, it's producing torrential rain rather than significant wind. Expect continued rain across Luzon and the Visayas tomorrow with some easing by Sunday, though the broader wet pattern lingers into the following week. Moisture is still hanging around by Tuesday. Rainfall estimates. Western Luzon through the Visayas could see 3-day totals around 250 millimeters or more, in the heaviest pockets enough to raise real flash flood and landslide concerns, especially on already saturated ground. Farther south around Tacloban and Davao, totals should be considerably lighter, a reminder of how unevenly rain distributes even within one broad tropical event. The third and least defined system is a hybrid, not-quit tropical disturbance, parked near Guam in the northern Marianas north of Yap and Palau. It's behaving somewhat like a tropical depression, occasional gusty winds, consistently heavy rain, while pulling in leftover moisture from systems to the north in a monsoon-like flow. This is the one area where something more organized could plausibly develop in the coming days. Rainfall estimates. Roughly 100 milliliters, about 4 inches, is possible across the island chain over the next 3 days, on top of what's already fallen, with the heaviest totals possibly shifting toward Tinian and Saipan rather than Guam directly. This wet stretch will likely run past the initial 3-day window. Wind damage is mostly about peak intensity, how strong gusts get at their worst. But rainfall totals, storm surge, duration, and cumulative stress on buildings and infrastructure are functions of time as much as strength. A Category 12 storm parked over an area for 2 or 3 days can ultimately do more damage, more rain, more prolonged surge, more wear on structures and power lines than a stronger storm that passes through quickly. That's why Dolphin deserves serious respect, despite a modest category, rating it's not the force of the hit, it's how long it lingers. Because of that, lingering Dolphin's own rain threat is arguably as significant as its wind threat. Areas from Okinawa to the Chinese coast could see totals reach 300 milliliters or more in the hardest, hit spots driven less by typical typhoon rainfall and more by how slowly this storm is crawling across the region. Parts of Kyushu, especially east-facing coastal sections, should also expect extra rain as terrain brings additional moisture from the storm circulation. 3 simultaneous systems is unusual for late summer in the western Pacific and Southeast Asia. This is peak season for it. Warm ocean water, spanning a huge stretch combined with a seasonal monsoon trough, allows multiple systems from full typhoons to loosely defined disturbances to develop and coexist across the same ocean basin. It's common during this stretch of the calendar to be tracking a major typhoon, a monsoon rain event, and a disorganized system all at once. Separately, the Bay of Bengal has also seen increased activity with meaningful rain hitting parts of India. That's governed by its own monsoon dynamics distinct from the Western Pacific systems, but it's part of the same broader pattern of active moisture-rich weather across Asia. Right now, Okinawa, Ryukyu chain prepare for a prolonged stretch of typhoon tropical storm conditions rather than a quick hit. Secure loose items. Expect extended power outages and don't assume danger has passed once peak winds move through the broader wind field and rain will linger. Northern Taiwan. Taipei area. Expect gusty conditions and periods of heavy rain without the storms. Core crossing the island. Eastern China wind threat drops quickly after landfall, but flooding rain becomes the primary concern as the system weakens over land. Western Luzon, Visayas. Sustained heavy rain brings the dominant flooding and landslide risk over the coming days, even without a fully formed typhoon. Guam, Tinian, Saipan. Expect an extended stretch of heavy rain that may outlast the initial 3-day forecast worth watching, both for flooding and for signs. The nearby disturbance organizes further. Bottom line, typhoon. Dolphin is the most significant of the three systems, moving unusually slowly past Okinawa before landfall in China this weekend, with impacts stretched over 1 to 3 days rather than a brief passage. Meanwhile, heavy rain continues across the northern Philippines from one weaker system and across the Marianas from a third, still disorganized system worth watching for further development. Stay off exposed coastlines where surge and waves are elevated and follow official updates as conditions evolve.